Good afternoon, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Backmarkers F1 Show. This is episode 52, recapping the 2019 French Grand Prix, and we're proud to bringing back the cameras.
Cameras are back.
We found just a quick solution for this. Will actually be our last episode at this location. Shaker is back in the country tomorrow, so we'll be back with him for our Austrian our preview and our recap. But yeah, we just found a quick workaround to give you guys some cameras, put up some little decor here and there.
You could call it a Williams setup.
We're setting
just
a little bit.
Just get in the grid.
Yeah, exactly. Just to at least get some, at least a finish, right?
Yeah, you try to not DNF.
Yeah, we do that. So, it's we're in another situation again where we're talking about a race that was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was.
I think if we're all being honest with ourselves and with the sport, it was a pretty abysmal race. I don't know if it was as bad as Barcelona or Baku, but it's certainly up there.
Lewis Hamilton has now led 105 of the 106 laps at Paul Ricard.
Paul Ricard, yeah, since
it's
the
53
return.
lap race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's only not led one lap out of the whole, which is kudos to Hamilton.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has that circuit down, and he's the world champion. He's one of the best we'll ever watch. And it's kind of one of those things where we have the whole, Messi and Ronaldo argument that they're too good, or not too good, but, you want to see them fail a little bit. But at the same time, I'm starting to realize now that we have to somewhat enjoy watching Hamilton just do this masterclass, because there's not going to be many drivers like him down the road. And even though this season is out of the picture, he's going to win the world title. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I know it's not a crazy gap, but it's enough of a gap. Is it down to a season now where it's just enjoy Lewis being Lewis and one of the best to ever step or sit inside of a cockpit?
I mean, if you're not a Lewis fan, then that's going to be hard to do. But
it is, but you kind of have to realize how, and we shit on Lewis so much in this podcast.
Yeah.
Mostly because we're envious of him. But it's just been remarkable what he's done this season. Even with Bottas being unbelievable, and this new Valtteri Bottas, and then Lewis was kind of like, yeah, I'll step up my game a little bit more then.
Yeah, he's like, that's cute.
Yeah, and now he's dominated ever since.
I'm glad you actually brought that up, because it was a point that I wanted to talk about, that the state of Formula One in the hybrid era has been so boring and has been so one-sided in the favor of Mercedes that we're kind of underappreciating what Lewis Hamilton is doing.
100%.
And again, this is coming from somebody who, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Lewis Hamilton. It's not like I hate him or dislike, I really don't care. But if I were to rank him, he probably wouldn't be in my top 5 favorite drivers currently or of all time. But when you look at what he's done, sure, he has had the fastest car and he's had the best car, but he's also had to deliver, because his teammates like Rosberg and Valtteri Bottas, they weren't able to do what he's done in the 6 seasons of the V6 turbo hybrid era. So
even say Hamilton's out of the picture, say it's whoever in Valtteri racing at Mercedes, I don't think we see this domination of Mercedes winning all 8 Grand Prix. I think
this season, yeah.
I think we see either a Ferrari or a Red Bull step up and beat Bottas, because we've seen that this season where he's put under pressure. We saw in the last little bit of this race as well, couldn't get his tires worn back up, and Charles Leclerc almost passed him on the last lap. Maybe one more lap, Charles would have had him.
Yeah, I think he would have.
So it all comes down to Lewis just being, that much better than everyone else. I think is why we're seeing this. Obviously the Mercedes is a great car, but I think a huge part of this Mercedes domination has to be the domination of Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason this season is just because of the underperformance of all the other teams is why the gap is so big.
Right.
But we saw in 2018 that when it got close, Hamilton still got on top and won the championship quite comfortably in the end. Now, we want to see more seasons of that, because I think that Vettel eventually, another 2 to 3 seasons battling like that, would eventually come out on top. Probably Hamilton more times than Vettel would, but this season we've kind of been robbed of seeing that again.
Yeah.
But you're slowly starting to see Hamilton catch all of Schumacher's records. Just to quickly go over them, that was his 79th win. Michael has 91. Right, yeah, 91.
91, yeah.
So there's 13 races to go. If Hamilton were to win all the races from now until Abu Dhabi, he would surpass that record in Abu Dhabi, which would be pretty crazy. But, I mean, he's going to surpass that record either way
Yeah,
because that Mercedes car is still going to be good next season. Maybe 2021 they would take a step back, but probably not even then.
maybe. Or they could be a step forward, and they're just unbelievable even more.
Yep. And he's on pace, like you said, for his 6th world title, one away then from Michael's record of 7. And he's probably still going to race for another, let's say,
2-3 years?
2-3 years. Yeah, exactly. So he could get 8 if other teams don't step up their performances. So he's already got more pole positions than him. There's a bunch of other records that he's closing in on when we kind of put the benchmark as Michael as being the greatest of all time. So whether you like him or not, he's definitely doing something that might not be seen again for another long time. And like I said, it's kind of hard to appreciate just because the racing and the gaps between the other teams is so far.
Yeah.
But I think there's a legit argument that you can make that even if it was close, Hamilton would still be the one on top. And I think 2018 was kind of the evidence of that.
I think so too. I mean, we had two manufacturers that were close with each other, and you just saw, after the summer break, yes, Ferrari took a step back and Vettel made a lot of costly errors, but guess who didn't make those errors? It was Hamilton. He was right there
Correct.
to pounce. He was very smart in his driving and clinical with it, and that's what won him his 5th world championship.
And it seems like he's doing it very easily. Like, he's at Paris Fashion Week and he seems really
He's
focused
loving
on
life.
stuff outside of the sport, and then he just turns up and puts in a stormer of a lap, and then even during the race he's reporting issues of his seat and some different kind of tire things, and then it's just fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. I thought it was a malfunction of the graphics for once.
I just think he's like just screwing with everyone, like trying to give him the
At
hope,
this
like
point,
where it's
yeah.
like, oh, this is actually going wrong, and he's like, nah, just kidding,
Yeah.
and is dominating.
No, yeah, he definitely is. And I mean, obviously he might not tell you it's that easy, and the team will probably not say it's that easy. From an outsider's, it just looks like it was just such a comfortable weekend for them. But yeah, so it's interesting. I think that if the racing would be a lot closer, and like you said, 2 or 3 teams would be involved, then we'd appreciate what he's doing a little bit more. But I think it'll take probably a good 5 to 10 years after he's retired to realize, like, oh, like this guy was
Yeah.
way better than what we gave him credit for. So
Are Ferrari scrambling now a little bit? Because, I mean, we saw, before the race started, their request for review was
yeah, I just wanted to mention
was Karun Chandok's Skypad.
What did you think of that when you saw that?
I was like, come on, guys. Like, obviously, they have the same angles. Like, Karun Chandok explaining it is not going to change the FIA's review of it.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed that they didn't take 3 points off his super license because I don't think he deserved those points. But it's a Skypad. It's not gonna. It's meant for TVs. It's meant to cause not communication. Argument. I don't know what the word I'm trying.
Debate. Yeah.
Thank you. Debate. That's the word. Wow. A, B, C, D. There you go.
Right. You're on Plan D now.
Yeah, Plan D. Yeah. Or didn't Ferrari say they were on Plan F at some point?
Yeah. It was
Plan fail.
It stand for fuck it.
Yeah.
At that point, it was
Yeah.
like.
Anyways, Ferrari need to give their heads a shake a little bit.
It was hilarious to me that was, and most of what they submitted to was stuff that the FIA already saw
Yeah.
or had. Like one of them was the onboard of Vettel facing his helmet, for example. But when I saw that was one piece of evidence. Like, and we mentioned this before in the build up to this race. In order for this to even go ahead in front of the FIA, like you need to have some really overwhelmingly strong evidence that they haven't seen before. And you not only did you give them everything that they've already seen, you give them an analysis of a broadcaster.
Yeah.
Like, and you know what the worst part about it is? Laurent Mekies, who's their sporting director, he worked for the FIA. He came over last year. He was working for the FIA, so he should have known above anybody. Like, I can understand there's some, numbskulls at Ferrari that would just be like, yeah, whatever, just submit it.
Just submit it, yeah.
But he should know above everybody else that, like, hey, guys, like, this isn't going to be good enough. So I think at the end of the day, it was just this political
more
move.
like, hey, guys, this is going to look silly. Don't do it.
Exactly, because we're going to look even worse than
Yeah.
what we already have leading up to this season. So, yeah, to me, it was just almost like a political show, but it really did seem like it distracted the team, especially Vettel, in terms of what his result ended up. So, getting back to your original point, I mean, the season's over now for them. Canada, if they would have won that race, you would have given them a little bit of hope and say, okay, maybe we can build some momentum with a couple favorable races coming up. But now the gap's just too big. The upgrades that you brought on in France didn't work in the way you wanted it to work. Austria, you might have a good chance of winning the race there, but after that, you're facing some difficult tracks. And if they're not figuring out any of their aerodynamic issues, I mean, they're not going to be able to do much. Only hope being that after the summer break, Mercedes has a little bit of a slump and they can win the majority of the races. But, I mean, in terms of the championship, constructors, forget about it. Drivers, you need an absolute miracle.
Yeah, you need a miracle both ways.
Yeah.
I don't think, have we had a year so far, even in the turbo hybrid area, that the championship has pretty much been over and it's a third of the way through the season?
Yeah,
I guess it's just over a third, but you know what I'm getting at.
Maybe 2016, although it was close with Hamilton and Rosberg. I mean, I think Mercedes won 19 out of 21 that year.
Yeah. I'm even talking drivers too. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone's going to catch Hamilton.
Yeah, because, even Valtteri slipped off a lot, which surprised me
Yes.
because a lot of people mentioned that in our comments when we were praising him early on this season. They're like, I want to see him keep it up. And I'm like, don't worry, he will. And so far he hasn't. So that's disappointed me a little bit because, I mean, that gap now is 36. So that's huge. That's one race win in hand if there's a DNF. So, I mean, it's not over for Valtteri just yet. There's still 13 races to go, but that's a pretty significant gap as well. And it seemed like it all happened so quickly. Kind of just seems like a race ago that Valtteri was taking pole positions, and now Lewis has won 6 races to
6-2.
Bottas's 2. Yeah,
6-2, which is a very big gap at that point. It looks kind of bleak for the rest of the season, doesn't it? I mean, hopefully Austria kind of gives us some fun experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's a first back-to-back, right? So it's just disappointing because typically you're excited on a race week, and after that you're just like, oh. There's another one of these coming up.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah, but
and Austria is a great track for Mercedes, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll get more into that in the preview. But we saw Red Bull obviously win last year, but yeah, it has been good for Mercedes since the return there. But I was just about to mention something, but it just slipped off the top of my mind.
My apologies.
I think it was just more getting to the Paul Ricard circuit.
Right.
No, okay, so that's what it was. When you mentioned Austria was a great track. The reason why it's a great track, too, is because it penalizes drivers for leaving the track. And this can lead into the whole incident that didn't get shown on the broadcast.
With Danny Rick.
That's right. And it was funny because we were mentioning this. We were like, wouldn't it be funny if somebody went off the track and re-entered and got penalties again? Like, wouldn't that be hilarious? And it happened.
It did happen.
It happened in practice. It happened in the race. And once again, we're talking about penalties deciding key moments in the race because that was the only really exciting part of the race, which we didn't get to see.
Yeah, we didn't really get to see it. They were showing the Bottas-Leclerc battle, like chase down, I guess you could call it. Yeah, unfortunately, it was a really great battle between 3 drivers. They were going three wide in that into that chicane, and it seemed like Ricciardo maybe just overshot the corner a little bit. It was tough to see if he kept all 4 tires on track. I mean, he almost did. He maybe was a little bit off, but the re-entry, I thought Lando got a little scared and just booted out to the left. He could have probably kept with it. The pass on Raikkonen was 100% penalty. That's fair. I'm okay with that. I don't know. I think it's just good hard racing though. But you could let us know in the comments below. I mean,
this went well last time.
This went well last time. Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's a hard one to decide. I know Danny Rick wasn't very happy with the penalties. You heard. Well, you didn't really hear it, but you could look at it on his Twitter. I mean, 2 5-second penalties dropped him down from 7th to 11th. A tough day for Danny Rick because he did race pretty well. Not the best driver on the track. I think it was who that incident was against, and now it's Lando Norris.
Right.
I think he was the best driver on with the best performance, I guess you could say. Yeah. Those are
just one of those things, right?
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, it sucks that happened. I agree with the FIA 100% on the pass with Raikkonen. even when I watched the replay of that, when they showed it after the broadcast, I was like, ooh, he's probably going to get called for that one.
Yeah, you can expect it.
But I wasn't expecting the first one. I thought maybe like they could look at it, and the only reason I said they could look at that is because of what happened last week. And I think the main reason they gave Ricciardo that penalty is to keep in with, the consistency of giving up penalties for that reason. And that's probably why they gave it to Ricciardo for the first pass in the chicane. Consistency.
Yeah.
Because if they don't give a penalty to Ricciardo there, Vettel's going, are you serious? Like, it's the exact same thing pretty much.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we mentioned it even before in all that mess of the aftermath there, but, there's a similar incident between Hamilton and Ricciardo, kind of identical to Canada, that didn't get penalized. So it's not always consistent, but I think they've been trying harder in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
My take on it when I saw it after the race, I agree. I think it's just good hard racing. You're looking at it's the last lap, and they're fighting for position, the final points positions. I think that when you look at the footage, Ricciardo kind of goes a little bit out of shape and tries to re-enter the track, because I think in Ricciardo's mind he's thinking, I don't want to cut the chicane because then I'm going to have to give up the position. So he's kind of fighting two regulations at the same time.
Right.
And he made up his mind that, okay, I'm just going to slow down, because he did. He slowed down. He even said himself he downshifted quite a few gears to stay on the track. So, again, I don't think that should have been a penalty, because I think, like you said, it's good hard racing. I think Lando took evasive action probably a little bit earlier. I think he might have been fine. They might have touched.
They might have. Well, in the end, Lando would have kept the position, I think, if he didn't go off track.
Yeah. And I think you're looking at, honestly, he probably would have lost those positions either way with the mechanical issues that he was dealing with.
Yeah, but I mean, kudos for him for the job he did to save that McLaren.
Yeah, he was great.
Amazing all weekend.
For sure.
Same with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, and we'll get to McLaren because they were great in France. So, but yeah, I agree. The second penalty, I mean, that's clearly the regulation, and it's different from the Vettel Hamilton one, right?
Yeah, he drove off track to make a pass on Raikkonen.
And you can have a debate on the Vettel Hamilton, like, was it unsafe? Was it safe? This one, there's no debate really. All four wheels are off the track. He made the overtake. The problem I have with it again,
Raikkonen was a nice guy and didn't stay in front of him. He actually moved over so that Ricciardo wouldn't crash into the braking boards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Raikkonen was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll move over." Like, I'm not gonna, he just kind of sees like a crazy kamikaze coming on his outside. It's like, "Oh, I'm steering away from this."
Right.
So yeah, kudos for Raikkonen for having the awareness to kind of save Ricciardo there, because Ricciardo's going full send on that outside.
And kudos to what he said post race too. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but I thought it was good fun racing." So
yeah,
he wasn't really like, "Oh, penalize him."
No,
which is nice.
I mean, Raikkonen's old school. He had a fun time in France. He said. I think he said he had a good time or a fun time.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's the thing, is that the problem is that once again we have the FIA kind of deciding things for us instead of the drivers deciding the results. And I get it. Like, I'm not saying that you don't penalize something that's blatantly a penalty, but getting back to what the conversation has been the last couple of weeks, there needs to be a massive change in review in the regulations. I think in the track layouts as well too, because part of the issue is Circuit Paul Ricard is a parking lot. So, I mean, these drivers, they're paid to get around as fast as possible. They're paid to overtake. They're going to use whatever track's available to them.
Well, we saw on the opening lap, was it Carlos Sainz? Oh no, sorry, it was Sergio Perez.
Perez, yeah, there's another penalty.
A penalty, but he did everything. Like, I was confused, but he did everything right. He went into the penalty zone area, and went back on track. And yeah, he had gained positions doing that, but he did everything in regulation.
Yeah.
I mean, was it a bad penalty area? Maybe it was too fast for people that what people thought. But I don't know what more Sergio Perez could do there.
I think the overwhelming issue with that was that he overtook Magnussen, I think. So he came out ahead, so he gained a position. So,
right, but he went in the penalty area.
Right, and that was the confusing part, too, for me. It was
so like, is the penalty area just faster, or is it because it's the first lap?
Right. Yeah, so I think that was the overwhelming. But it was confusing in the end, because you're not exactly sure what he's supposed to do. Is he supposed to slow down a bit more and let the other cars pass? But there's such a close pack of cars coming, you don't want to,
you'd have lost
4
8
or 5.
positions.
Yeah, exactly. So there's another kind of discrepancy that the drivers really aren't sure about. And
Man, it would be fun if they brought back those YouTube videos of inside the drivers' meeting for the
I
next race,
know.
because
Oh
I would
man,
love to be inside of
I was thinking about that.
what it
Yeah,
was in France and Austria now.
yeah, it
Because
would be
Austria is
great.
gonna, everyone's gonna be like, what is going on?
And I think what's an important point too is as much as we can shit on the regulations too, because when watching the IndyCar race this past weekend,
Oh, did you
just
watch it
catching
too?
the highlights.
I was gonna mention something about that as well.
I mean, look, there's great overtaking, there's great wheel-to-wheel action. Sometimes you can consider it hard, aggressive, whatever you want to call it, but the stewards, they don't step in.
It's American.
Yeah,
It's not FIA sanctioned though. Remember?
that's one of the reasons why, though. Maybe the FIA needs to step back a little bit here and let these guys race, because when you've got such a boring race like France, and then you finally have this one moment of excitement, and then what happens? It gets killed by penalties again.
Yeah.
So, but the part of the problem is, and people did make comments about this in the comments, and it is a good point. Part of the reason to blame is also the drivers, because in the end of the day, the drivers are the first ones that will get on team radio and ask the stewards to look at something.
Right.
Grosjean wants everything to be looked at. Everything, even like a clean DRS overtake, he reports to the stewards.
Yeah.
Check that out, please. So, whether it's Hamilton on the radio, Vettel's done it before. Pretty much all the drivers except maybe like Ricciardo.
Raikkonen doesn't.
Yeah,
even
Raikkonen,
really...
because he's a bit more old school. So that's part of the problem too, is that the drivers also want these things to be penalized in the end, which is kind of why the FIA changed sort of these things. But yeah, when we look at the IndyCar side of things, it's like completely different.
Alex Rossi, former F1 driver, now racing in IndyCar, put on an absolute clinic at Road America.
Yeah, I did.
I know we don't see this often. We usually see F1 drivers go to IndyCar when they get kind of shafted from their teams. Marcus Ericsson. There's another driver on the grid right now too. I just can't think who it is. I think, and this might be an interesting take, but I think Alex Rossi deserves an F1 seat. And I think he deserves a seat at Haas. Because it just makes sense. An American driver on an American team, maybe replaces Grosjean. He's been outstanding in IndyCar ever since he got there. He's been outstanding, just this weekend. He drove a masterclass. He was killing everyone by 20 seconds. And it's not like there's a manufacturer. I can't think of words today. There's not like there's like
a works team.
Yeah,
right?
it's not like there's a Mercedes dominant team in IndyCar. Everyone has the same aero package. Everyone has, there's two different engine suppliers. Mostly all you have to change is your setup. That's all you have.
Right.
And, it's all down to the drivers. And Rossi was unbelievable this past weekend. He's been great all season. And I really think he deserves a seat in F1 for next year at Haas.
He might be too aggressive, though. FIA standards, right? They might give him a race ban, but I think that's a great point. And I didn't even really think about that, because I started to think of, Grosjean hasn't had the best last couple of years, and it's continuing now into 2019. Granted that the Haas car has not been good this year, and he's had 4 mechanical failures as well.
Yeah.
But there's been at times where obviously Kevin Magnussen has outclassed him, and they renewed his contract, but there was some talk we saw in the Netflix series that, it was a little bit dicey at times. So I think for Haas, too, they want to break more into the U.S. market to have a U.S. driver.
Bring an American driver. Magnussen's, as American as you can get, being European, I think. But bringing Alex Rossi in, I think, would be awesome. I think it'd be great for this sport growing in the USA. And he's also just a good driver. So, he had a shot when he was younger. He's more matured. He hasn't been in F1 for a long time.
Yeah, and he only was there for, I think, a couple races. It wasn't much.
It wasn't much. He's grown a lot as a driver. You can tell, watching him race in IndyCar. And I think it's his time to shine. I think he's in that kind of peak performance where he's in his driving prime right now.
Yeah. And what a driver pairing that would be with Kevin Magnussen. Those would be
awesome.
One of the most feared lineups on the grid.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to look at. So,
yeah.
Anyways, that's my pitch to Haas. Maybe they're listening.
I think it's good. I think for a young team.
Actually, it's a pitch to an F1 team to sign the guy.
Yeah. But Haas makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to have an American driver, you put him with the American team.
It's like having a Canadian driver with the Canadian team.
Right. Lance Stroll and Racing Point now.
Yeah.
Even though it's not officially, but, you get the point. So, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens with Grosjean at the end of the season. But, yeah, 2 completely different series. We understand that. And
Yeah, it's different racing.
I'd give IndyCar a chance though if you've never watched it or if you don't really.
And if you're not into oval racing, they do obviously do road courses as well,
Yeah.
and the road courses are a lot more exciting than the oval races I find in IndyCar. But the oval racing is a lot different than road racing for obvious reasons. But Rossi's been very good on the road courses. I haven't kept track on his oval progress, but
Yeah, I don't know. He's great on the
I'm sure
ovals too.
Yeah, I'm sure he's great. Did he win an Indy 500?
Yeah, in his rookie season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, almost won it again this season. So
I mean,
yeah, he's a very competent driver on all sorts. And the IndyCar tracks too. They're road circuits. They're old school circuits. We're talking a lot of grass, gravel.
Road America would be so fun to watch F1 cars go
It would be
around.
great. I mean, Barber Motorsport as well. That's a good track. Sonoma's another really
They
good
race
track.
at Sebring, I believe. Yeah, Sonoma this weekend hosted the NASCARs.
Yeah,
I have that PVR. I don't know who won. Don't spoil it.
I think they're not making a return, but like Laguna Seca in California as well as another. It's not an IndyCar track, but it's more of a kind of a sports car track. But
Yeah.
something like that's a more old school type of circuit. So I think if Formula One went back to using those types of circuits, because when we go back to the Ricciardo incident, you have grass there, he's not going to go there, and we're not going to have to
Probably.
worry about track limit penalties.
And that's why I'm interested to see Zandvoort next year. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah,
If
I think
not,
so.
The Dutch fans
The
will
Dutch
correct
will
me.
let us know.
But that's gonna be a fantastic because that's an old school circuit. And I'm really,
It's
really
very narrow, right?
very narrow, grass everywhere. It might be tough for overtaking. We'll have to see, but I mean, you just need those aggressive drivers to be aggressive in that scenario.
Yeah, for sure. So let us know what you thought about the penalties. I think a lot of people will be maybe in a disagreement with how we sort of reviewed the penalties, but my biggest problem again is just I don't want penalties deciding the race.
Right.
And I always go back to that Mario Andretti tweet saying the stewards really just should be there to penalize blatantly unsafe maneuvers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to get back to. I think that these drivers at their core really want to race each other as long as it's done so fair and clean and it's not aggressive and it's not dangerous. Like the high speed, dangerous stuff, like, yeah, I mean, that should be penalized. We don't want to see cars going airborne like we did last season and things that are really dangerous.
Yeah.
But in terms of just bumping wheels here and there a little bit and these types of incidents, it's tough. But I get it. It's the regulation. You have to penalize it. I just don't agree with the regulation.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be reviewed. So I just hope that we won't have to talk too much more about penalties this season. And just transitioning into just the last couple of things, you mentioned Grosjean, and he's kind of on the hot seat. I want to mention another driver that really had probably his worst weekend ever in Formula One, and that's Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, he hasn't been good.
And you want to talk about that seat burning a little bit of a hole? I recently saw a picture at this weekend, Helmut Marko and Denny Kvyat's manager having a meeting at the Toro Rosso motorhome. No rumors hearing anything like that. They just saw the meeting happening. But Pierre Gasly, he did finish 10th because of the penalties, bumped him up to 1 point. But Daniel Ricciardo and a Renault passed him. 2 McLarens finished ahead of him.
Is it last week or the week before? But I said that Denny Kvyat should replace Pierre Gasly.
I think you said it last week.
Was it last week? I think it should happen. Kvyat's been racing unbelievable. He's been very aggressive. He's made his presence known, and he's pulled off some great moves, and he's getting good results in the Toro Rosso. He's been better than Albon. He's probably been one of the better, midfield drivers so far this season. I'd put him behind Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, maybe. Raikkonen, I put him behind as well. But he's been up there.
Yeah.
He's been better than a lot of other drivers as well. Why not give him a shot? Provide some entertaining races up front.
Yeah.
He'd give Max a good challenge, and he'd probably cause a little bit of controversy in the meantime. Why not?
Yeah.
We need something this season.
Yeah, we do, really. I think it would be something to talk about.
It's
for
something
sure.
we'd see the summer break, no?
I would say so, yeah. And again, I feel bad for Pierre Gasly, but
I think it's just a little bit too early for him.
yeah.
I think he needs just a little bit more grooming at Toro Rosso.
And I think it's unlucky for him too with the car. If the car was maybe last year's car, a little bit drivable and with more performance, maybe it would have masked a little bit of the errors. But when you saw even in qualifying, he went out on the soft tire and was being out qualified by guys on the medium.
Yeah.
Like Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, the McLarens. they all went out on the medium, and Gasly was like half a tenth a second slower.
And it's not that Gasly's not a good driver. I think he is an F1 talent, and I think he's going to be a great driver down the line. I just maybe not the right timing to put him up there. I think he just needs a little more grooming,
Yeah.
a little bit more experience than before moving up. And we saw it with Perez a long time ago with McLaren.
Right.
We needed a little more grooming. We saw it with Danny Kvyat. Needed a little more grooming.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an idea for Red Bull, and it might. I think it has a strong possibility of happening.
The only question is, if you're Red Bull, do you go down the Kvyat road again?
I think so. Why not?
Yeah,
Maybe Max will win a race.
Yeah, for sure. Like he's improved a lot from when he came over in 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a different driver, and yeah, the way that he handled his departure from Red Bull was good as well. Not burning that bridge and leaving the door open for a comeback, which
Right.
we only had a year off, so it's not too bad. So I think really Red Bull is kind of out of other options at this moment when you look at the driver market. Maybe in the offseason they'd have a little more options to maybe try and persuade Ocon out of his Mercedes contract to give him a drive.
Maybe.
Because that's always open. Because right now we're not exactly sure where Ocon
Max
would
and
be able to
Ocon
fit in,
as
right?
Teammates. That'd be
Yeah, I
funny.
mean, we've talked about it before. It'd
Yeah.
be a bit of a crazy partnership, but I think Red Bull have shown in the past, and definitely Helmut Marko, that they're not just going to keep a guy in there that's struggling. They want results. And Max has completely outclassed him, so they need that other driver that's going to at least close the gap, because you don't want your teammate being a second faster than you weekend after weekend. And
It just doesn't look good.
no,
I mean,
not at all.
If him and Albon, race close together, then they can kind of learn and grow together, and then maybe that's your pairing of the future. Knowing wherever Max might go down the line,
Right.
Maybe he'll stay with Red Bull. Who knows?
Yep.
That's a conversation for probably 2-3 years down the line.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye out in the coming weeks before the summer break, but unfortunately for Pierre Gasly, I think that he's really got to show something here in Austria, especially at their home race.
Yeah, he's got to have a strong performance
Yeah.
from now until the summer break. The rest of the season, but especially now to the summer break.
Exactly. Yeah, he needs a good finish there. And one of the last things, McLaren. We want to talk a little bit about McLaren, because they were a team that they said that this track wasn't necessarily going to be that great for their car and their setup, but from out of the gate in the first couple practice sessions, they were quick. Lando Norris was in fourth position like consistently, setting fast times, and then in qualifying they had a good qualifying, and in the race too they were running well. And unfortunately, Lando Norris had his issues in the end mechanically, but
Yeah, hydraulic issue, but really well done to maintain that. I mean, that's scary. No DRS. Power steering was going down the drain as the laps continued, and throttle management and gear shifts were a little slower. Everything hydraulic. Hydraulic issues always get worse.
yeah.
But he did a fantastic job of nursing that McLaren to what was a points finish because of the penalties. And I don't know. He was the best driver in France by far. And McLaren were the most impressive in France by far. And I think that's huge going forward. I mean, they've jumped Renault in this kind of who's going to challenge the top three. I think McLaren, with all their development, could be the ones that are up in the top three. Well, I guess you could call it the top four before Renault.
And now they've also invested in building a wind tunnel for themselves.
Yeah, because they were using
Toyotas in
right.
Cologne. I think quite a few teams actually use Toyotas. But yeah, so they're investing in that, which is good news, because that tells us that they're going to be in
They
the
have
sport. Yeah, well, that too. The only thing that concerns me with McLaren is they're dipping their toes in a lot of other areas. Like, they've looked at maybe an entrant into the IndyCar season. They're looking at possibly building something for Le Mans, a return to Le Mans, and then obviously their massive road car production. And it kind of correlates to the time when they ramped up their road car production. Their results in F1 started to kind of go down the drain a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't take away from Formula One.
I think maybe they learned from their last mistake and now have more manpower to do that. Obviously, I don't know. I don't work at McLaren.
Yeah.
But you would hope they learned from their mistake last time. Because it's always nice to see McLaren up at the front. They've been there forever. They've been a constant in Formula One for the longest time. It's like how we all want Williams to be up at the front again as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, We can't have everyone up at the front. We like to see everyone up at the front, but it's not possible. Someone has to be last.
We just want to see the gaps closed. That's
Yeah,
all.
I think that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah,
We want to see 5 to 6 teams winning a race each year.
Yeah, well, for sure. And just quickly on Williams too, they had a good battle between Russell and Kubica.
They did.
And Russell had a great overtake. And that's the hard thing, right? Is they're battling for 19th and 20th, and for sure. I mean, every sport has to have somebody that finishes last, but I mean, even the worst team in the NHL or the NBA on a good night, they can still beat the Golden State Warriors or the Toronto Raptors, right? But I mean, on Williams' best day, they might finish 17th.
Yeah.
But they have no chance of winning the race. And even the likes of McLaren or Renault, on your best day, you would need mechanical failures up
To
the
get a
whole
podium.
grid in order to get a podium. So that's the problem with where the sport is right now. It's at the moment just one team have the chance to winning the races. Last year we had 3, which was an improvement,
Yeah.
but that can be even better. Imagine if we did have 4 or 5 teams in contention for races. Maybe not at every track, but at some tracks, it would make it a lot more exciting. So I don't know what's going to happen in 2021. They've delayed the whole
Yeah.
regulation changes, but I'm not really optimistic about the 2021 regs either.
I think you have to be. You gotta hope. It's just for the sake of it. You just gotta hope that it's gonna be a little closer for everyone.
If you're the owners and Liberty Media, you better hope that they change for the good, because
Yeah.
a lot of people were super pissed after this race.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I don't know if it was the worst F1 race ever. Probably not, but
No,
some
I don't
people
think so. But
were going that far. But yeah, I mean, you just have to be honest, right? Like, we're not going to come on here and say that, oh, this was a great race just to boost views or whatever. Like, we're going to be honest. It was a boring race.
it was a boring race.
And, after...
I actually ended up falling asleep. For
yeah,
5
you were
laps.
telling me, yeah.
I accidentally. I tried to stay up and I legit fell asleep. I think it was between laps 32 and 42 or something like that.
Most people did.
Yeah.
Halfway, I think around like lap 30, I started to play at like 2 times speed, because it was a beautiful summer day outside. I'm like, what am I wasting my time here for? I know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. And then when it got to the last lap, when the action, they decided to cut to Bottas and Leclerc.
Which is, like, I understand that from a director's point is for a podium position.
Yeah.
I just was hoping they would go right back to the Ricciardo battle, right away after they crossed the line. But they didn't, which sucked.
Yeah, I think the problem is that, I mean, once you commit to that, you have to stay on it.
Just once they crossed the line and then just go back.
Right, yeah.
But they didn't.
Because, I mean, they have sort of an obligation. They obviously got to show the race winner crossing the line. And, I'm thinking that because it's Ferrari and Mercedes, the bigger sponsors, they want to make sure that they get that battle on camera. Also because it is for a podium, and, even though the better racing was at the back, with all due respect, it's for, 2-4 points.
Yeah.
So
6 points in Raikkonen's case.
right, yeah. Unfortunately, it wasn't shown, which sucked, because it was really the only
Good battle.
big moment of the race. So, yeah, we'll see what happens in Austria. I mean, a Lance Stroll update, if we can quickly do one before we go. Again, poor qualifying.
Yeah, second off Perez in the last sector.
And
And he didn't say there was a car problem. He said, yeah, I have to look into where he found all that pace.
yeah,
Which is
I don't know. To me, he's a good qualifier, because I always think back to what he did in Monza in the rain
Right.
in 2017. I think it's half driver, half car as well, but he's got what Perez is doing. He's finding the most out of the car.
Yeah.
That's what Lance Stroll has to do.
But he did well in the race once again. Like
Great race again, yeah.
He's been very good on his tires, and we've seen how much it's helped him.
And I think that Perez also, because Hulkenberg was saying when he was teammates, he learned a lot about how to save rear tires, because Sergio's like the master
right.
at making tires last long. So I think maybe he's passed on some of that knowledge to Lance Stroll, because that was one of the areas he struggled the most entering F1, always locking up, flat spotting tires, but he seemed to kind of figure that out now, and he made the first stint last like 30
Crazy.
some odd laps or
Yeah.
something, more maybe. So yeah, he's just got to qualify better. We've been saying this for weeks now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad of a weekend for Racing Point as what they thought. This was
No,
for them
actually-
the worst track, according to them.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that bad. I thought the way they were talking, thought they were gonna be fighting Williams for 19th.
Yeah,
But
seriously.
no, it wasn't as bad as they thought they would be. So onwards and upwards for Racing Point.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that about does it for the French Grand Prix. We tried to squeeze out as much as we can in what was a pretty uneventful race, but I think we covered the most of it. Shout out to Williams, a 1.97 second pit stop.
Yeah.
They've been killing it this year.
That's 3 weeks in a row?
I think so, yeah.
Imagine that was on like if they were fighting for positions,
Right.
1.97 seconds.
That's amazing.
That's the DHL fastest. I was going to mention that, so thank you. DHL fastest lap award again, or fastest pit stop award again. Well done from Williams.
Yeah.
They're leading something, and that's all that matters.
They can cheer about something, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they get any prize money or something for that, but
I hope so.
they deserve it. They've been working hard.
Is that a record? 1.97. What's? I know Red Bull has the record or had the record.
I gotta
for
say it's
fastest pit stop.
close. Maybe it's 1.92 for
If you
Red
can
Bull.
stall for like,
You'll find out. Yeah.
like 30 seconds, I can find out.
Well, it is Red Bull, and I think they said it in the V8 era, but they were known for their really quick pit stops. And to this day, still, they have a really efficient pit crew. Mercedes has always had a good one as well, but Williams this season has really been known for their speed. So
Oh, I got it. They were close to the record. The
Oh, yeah?
fastest pit stop is a 2013 U.S. Grand Prix Red Bull and Mark Webber, 1.923 seconds.
Oh, there we go.
In the 2016 European Grand Prix, the Williams team completed a pit stop for Felipe Massa in 1.92 seconds as well. So they're both 1.92 seconds, Williams and Red
Yeah.
Bull.
Wow.
So
That's
if
crazy.
you're getting faster every week, maybe by Belgium, 1.91. Maybe.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope they get the world record. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
They beat their own world record, but still, I'm fine with it.
No, good for them. Good for them. It's something that they can at least kind of go back to the factory and say, hey, we're really good. We're the best in this area.
Yeah.
So that's nice for them. But that will do it for us in our French Grand Prix recap. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the race. I'd be interested to see if anybody.
You can rant in the comments below.
Maybe some of you
Go
guys
ahead.
enjoyed the race. Maybe you were watching a different race in that case, because I don't know. We'll see what people say, but let us know about the incidents as well and what you think. And drop us your predictions also for the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll be doing a separate preview for that, obviously, in the next couple of days, because it is the first back-to-back of the season, and it is ramping up just before the summer break. So fingers crossed for a better race in Austria, but it's a good track there in Spielberg. So
yeah, I love Austria.
Red Bull Ring should be good.
Great racetrack.
And I'm looking forward to all the great Dutch supporters that will come out for Max. So that should be fun, as always. Great atmosphere. Belgium as well, and so that should be good.
Yeah, I really want to go to Zandvoort.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the Dutch fans are just the best, aren't they?
We'll try and work it out. We should contact the track.
Let us know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, folks, and we'll see you in a couple days for the Austrian Grand Prix preview.